Welcome back to our series. Galicia was not only a center of assimilationism, of course, but also a leading center of Zionism, both in raw numbers and in terms of leadership in the global movement, which was based at the time, of course, in Vienna, the capital of the empire. Zionism drew on two distinct groups. On the one hand, disillusioned integrationists, those who had been highly integrated, highly acculturated, but grew disillusioned by the rise of anti-Semitism in the host national community. And on the other hand, modernizing ethnicists, people coming from within a richly Jewish milieu, but come to Zionism as a way of expressing their Jewishness in a more modern fashion. Among the former camp, one of the most important and accomplished Zionist leaders was Adolf Stand. Born and raised in Lemberg in a highly acculturated Polish-speaking household, he, as a gymnasium student in the early 1880s, in his young teens, he discovers Mikra Kodesh. Established as an educational association for assimilated Jews, it soon attracts Jews from more richly Jewish backgrounds, with Jews like Stand who could guide them towards modern education, help them prepare for gymnasium. On the other side, as Polish nationalism grows more anti-Semitic, Jews like Stand transferred their quest for national wholeness into Zionism. Stand was among the leaders of the group by 1885, and he co-led its transformation into Zion, Galicia's first full-fledged Zionist group, in 1888. He edited, already then at age 18, he edited the movement's flagship journal Przyszłość, The Future, and later the important Zionist annual Rocznik Żydowski Jewish Yearbook, both, of course, in Polish, the language of the secular intelligentsia that constituted most of the nascent Zionist movement in Galicia. Stand was among those Zionists closest to Polish culture. Zionism was for him a means of transforming and transferring Polish romantic nationalism into a Jewish context. At one Hanukkah celebration, for example, Stand mocked the Hellenists for wanting to assimilate despite his praise for Greek culture. They did not appreciate the beauty and lofty aspects of Greek culture, he said. They liked only the dirty and immoral aspects of the Greek land. But his real leadership emerged a decade later, when Theodor Herzl's Der Judenstaat sparked a transformation in the Galician Zionist movement. Stand pledged himself to Herzl and remained his most devoted supporter in Galicia. He wrote to him already in September of 1896 that Galician Zionism was languishing for lack of charismatic leadership, and he promised to help organize them all under the umbrella of Herzl's new Zion Federation in Vienna, soon to become the World Zionist Organization. Stand traveled widely throughout Galicia, winning over audiences with his Zionist speeches and establishing a variety of Zionist groups. He was considered actually one of the finest speakers of his generation. Despite his great admiration for Herzl, though, he didn't always go along with them, and most famously, he opposed the Uganda scheme. He favored practical settlement activity in Palestine. That may not have been so important because his real focus, like most Zionists, was in any event not on Palestine, but rather on diaspora Jewish politics, what's called in German Landespolitik. The Galician Zionists had long been supporters of such activity. Vienna, the central organization, had sort of held them back. They were concerned that it might backfire to get involved in domestic politics. But then in 1905, the Habsburg Emperor Franz Joseph announced a new parliament would be elected by universal manhood suffrage, and all bets were off. Stand actually got an early chance to compete for parliament when Emil Bick died in 1906, a year before elections, and Stand ran for his seat against an assimilationist Jewish candidate named Joseph Gold, who was the Polish Jewish deputy mayor of the local town. Stand pledged not to join the dominant Polish faction, but instead to be an independent Jewish national candidate, perhaps even establishing a Jewish national party, or club as they were called, in the parliament. As you see on the screen, gentlemen, from a speech Stand gave, do you know the difference between me and the other candidates who have suddenly discovered their Jewish heart? Theirs is a struggle for individuals. Mine is a system. I personally may fall, but behind me stand hundreds and thousands of young Jews, and this young, feeling people will later give us the mandate. We will get it as the mandate of the Jewish people. Ironic in that he was as pro-Polish as any of the assimilationists. He boasted about it in the campaign, proudly speaking in Polish and pledging to Polonize Brody's German-language gymnasium, one of the last such gymnasia in Galicia. All the parties mobilized for this tiny constituency as a foretaste of the next year's campaigns. And note, Stand did not run as a Zionist. He ran explicitly as a representative of all Jews, and he picked up a lot of endorsements from German Jewish liberals, from the socialist Zionists, even from the anti-Zionist ultra-Orthodox. He lost, partly because it was rigged and partly because he was so pro-Polish he couldn't attract Ukrainian support, which was key to their victory in 1907. But a year later, he has a new chance. He heads the new Jewish National Party, fielding candidates in some 24 districts across Galicia, and he becomes their most effective Polish language speaker, crisscrossing the province. When the dust settled, Stand and 3 other Jewish nationalists won. They formed the first Jewish national party in European parliamentary history, lasting there for 4 years. The importance of that group is hard to overstate. They were dedicated to Galicia. As they write, we have come to transform Galicia into Europe and to bring it a modern economy. But above all, they were dedicated to the recognition of the Jewish nation, and with it, Jewish national rights, and not based on language like Yiddish, which wouldn't work for a speaker like Stand. Here's their statement. We are a Jewish club. True, there has been in this house since its formation Jews, but these belong to other clubs, other national associations and unions. They belong to either to the German Liberal Party or the Polish Club and consider themselves not as Jews, but rather as Poles or Germans. Now we come and we say we are Jews. They insisted they would have national neutrality, hand in hand with the Polish Democrats and the Ruthenian Democrats, arm in arm with all who are young, modern, and vital, among all 3 peoples of this entire land. We go, as you see on the screen, with all oppressed minorities against the oppressor, with the persecuted against the persecutor, with the tormented against the tormentor. It was a total failure of politics of Jews to go always with the strong. The older generation of assimilationist politicians did this, against whom we also struggle. The politics that we have inaugurated is this: we go with those in the right. In the end, the party accomplished very little despite the support of Ukrainians, and they were voted out in 1911, partly because of corruption in that year's elections, and partly because the Ukrainians refused to help them the second time around. Stand was elected president of the Galician Zionist Organization in January 1914, but with the outbreak of World War I later that year, he fled to Vienna together with other Jewish refugees from the Russian army, and he struggled to adapt. He did join Austrian Zionist leadership, and after the war was appointed chairman of the East Galicia National Council mission in Vienna. But his position as leader of Galician Jewry had come to an end in 1914. His passing in 1919 meant that he could not take part in the experiment of independent Poland that his old friend Yoshua Ton would engage in for almost 20 years, as we'll learn in a later lecture. Thank you.